Greetings, family. Dr. Mark Holland here from the Mind the Business That Pays You podcast. I have a good friend with me today, Dr. Peter Rios. And before we go in, Dr. Peter, let me just ask you this one question. What is it that you do and what makes you great at it?
Well, first, Dr. Mark, thank you for having me. Such a privilege to be here with you. You know, I respect you, honor you, all that you do. It's amazing work. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let's just say that I do many things, but I think if I had to pick one, it would be speaking, right? I'm able to take a complicated matters or subject matter and make it very simple, layman, grassroots terms so that people understand the message. And so I think with that said, usually when I'm going to speak or teach, I embody the message, right? I'm not going to just bring you something from a book, but something I've lived, something that I understand inside and out, and take ownership of that time, whether it's 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 2, 3 hours, and bring a powerful message that will help you in your life and in your leadership. So I think that would be the thing that I would choose at this point in time.
Okay, and let me ask you this because you have a big up on me. I gotta admit it. You're
Yeah.
bilingual. You're
Okay.
bilingual.
Right.
Okay,
Right. Yeah.
so when you are working, um, and you have different say you have a crowd or the audience has people that speak both languages in it. How do you deal with that? Do you go in between or what do you do?
So I'm a big believer in contextual intelligence. So
Hmm.
if I was invited to speak in English or I was invited to speak in Spanish, I'll try to stick to that. But if it were bilingual in the sense of both, then I may throw a word here and there or a phrase to kind of, help folks who may understand one language more than the other. So they feel like they belong, right? I'm all about inclusion. And so I'll do something like that. I have had events where I've had a translator or when I've had to actually do both. I don't really particularly find that helpful. I think that, if you want to do two languages at the same time, in this case, we're talking about English and Spanish, a translator is perfect. And then
Yeah,
when we have a translator, I tell the person, listen, if I jump, you jump. If I wave my hand, you wave like
that's
don't
right.
you
That's
mirror
right.
everything I'm going to do. And the person's like, all right, let's go. And I'll usually look at the person and the crowd and get the crowd in and make sure that the same energy is being given in both languages. So I think that's just part about being, and honestly, I'll add this. You didn't ask this, but I'll add it about being Latino, right? And in the US, where we've had to learn multiple cultures, multiple languages. Some people call it code switching. These I would say leadership qualities that before we saw it as um, something that was more negative, but now we're realizing in this climate we're living in that it's a leadership edge to be able to to be fluid, to go in and out of a different culture, whether it's an organization, a different state, and be able to navigate those dynamics. So I have to give credit to my upbringing, to my grandmother, Lourdes, who raised me and made sure that I could speak and flow in both.
I love it, man, and I want you to feel comfortable to do just what you did because you said even though I didn't ask that, I just want to tap into all that you have, man, because some things I might not know to ask.
Good, yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
want you to flow because I want our audience to, get the essence of Dr. Peter here. So
That's
so
good.
so let me ask you this, sir. Um, how did your time in the US Marine Corps shape your core beliefs about leadership? And can you share a moment from that period that still influences how you lead today?
That's great. I think for me, being raised in New York and then having my first, and being in New York, I was in a multicultural environment, right? Multilingual, but then my first duty station was Okinawa, Japan. And then from there, I went to South Korea. And then from there, I went to California. And so it really helped me to get exposure. And that's where I want to land. I talk about that in my book, Maximize. Like, the best way for you and me to grow, not only in skill set, but competence and cultural and contextual awareness is exposure. Because if you are
Mhm.
in one particular environment or state, or community for that matter, too long, you normalize that experience, and you think that that's the norm everywhere. And that's not
Mhm.
the case. And so I think that, in the Marines, that really helped me. It was the start. I'm not going to say it was the all and be end, but it was the start to leaning more into being a global citizen. So, today at this recording is January 2026, and I'm aware of the issues we have in our country, but I'm also, I wouldn't say I know everything, but I'm also up to date. At least I try to remain up to speed on global issues. And what does that do? That helps you to understand that, I talk about global leadership, right? Local and global at the same time. You're global, you're a
Mhm.
global citizen. You need to know what's going on besides your inner circle, And so I think that that's where it started, Mark, where I began to get exposure and say, oh, wow, you folks do that like that over there. That
Mhm.
might actually be even better. And so just helping me to always remain nimble in my service and leadership, and being able to let some things go, unlearn some things, relearn some other things. And that has helped me to, quite frankly, be able to grow and personally, but professionally as well.
Now, I need you to educate me real quick. How do I say mind the business that pays you in Spanish?
Man, it doesn't translate perfectly like word to word, but I would say something like um pendiente, like attentive, al negocio que te paga. Pendiente al negocio. Negocio is business. So you may
Uh-huh.
at least get that word, negocio. Que te
Okay.
paga. Paid. Come
Okay.
on.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go when I go back to this. I'm gonna memorize that. You got me. You got me going
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. That's
So,
good.
so listen, interesting that you use the word exposure because as I was studying what you do, you work across higher education, business, nonprofit organizations, and ministry. What are the most surprising differences in leadership challenges across those sectors, and what leadership practices kind of translate universally?
Um, so I mentioned contextual intelligence earlier, right? I'm actually
Yes.
writing a book on contextual leadership. Nobody steal my idea, please. But I'm just kidding. But that I'm writing it because, and I've done some talks and some videos, but I'm doing it because exactly what you said. I'm trying to help these different industries and different spaces see the blessing, see the productivity, see the good side of the other. So, for example, in higher education, there's different systems. Like tenure is one of them. Like
Mm.
some institutions have, for their professors and faculty instructors, a tenure system means that after like 6 to 10 years, you could become hired for the rest of your life. And so, what does that mean? That type of longevity for an organization. Other organizations, they hire slow and fire fast, right? So what does that mean for your industry? And so there's different things that translate, and there's some other things that may not. However, what I have noticed is that in each industry, right, or in each uh industry, a sector, they do
Sure.
things one way. It's like a culture, right? It's like, even a ethnic or racial culture, we may do things one way. And it's like that's the same thing about being a global citizen. You understanding how leadership is done in different places, not only in your country, but around the world, really helps you to be most effective, efficient, right? And that better serve your own mission and vision. Um, I don't believe in a cookie cutter approach to leadership. So,
Hmm.
for example, you have to do some listening. You have to see how things are done in whatever particular context. The worst thing a leader can do, a person can do, is go into a particular organization or context and assume things. You can't assume. You have to
Right.
ask questions. You have to get to know the lay of the land. You got to get to know the norms, right? How we do things around here. That's so important. And so once you begin to do those things and you begin to see how things are navigated, how things work, who are the influencers, right? How things are connected, what things may not be said, but is there. And you need to know those things, right? The unwritten rules, that's what we call them. Then you begin to grow in that leadership. And I think that's where you have emerging leaders or emergent leaders to, more seasoned, and then you got the maybe C-suite or mature or well-seasoned leaders, right? Where
Mm.
you understand, don't assume, there's no cookie cutter approach. You need to listen, you need to be sensitive to the real issues at hand, who matters, who are the stakeholders, who are the decision makers, and then go from there. But I would say I start in some of those.
Awesome. Now let me just give you a little bit of before I ask you this next question. I'm gonna give you a little bit about me that you may not know. I have been on like some large projects like BWI Airport, the Pentagon, different projects where I was the cost negotiator. When you negotiate, particularly when you negotiate across cultural lines, there can be different rules.
Mhm,
Um, and you need to understand those rules. For example, in some cultures, I'm gonna use this word carefully, but I'm just gonna use it. In
mhm,
some cultures, it's fine to lie to, I mean, to get somebody to do what you want them to do. You just, you know, and in some cultures, that's ethical, just not ethical. So the
mhm,
question I have for you is, your work emphasizes value-based leadership, right?
mhm.
How do you advise leaders to navigate situations where organizational incentives conflict with stated value?
Oh man, that's a good. How much time we got? Um,
Give me the sound bite, buddy. Give me the sound.
yeah, yeah. So I'll give you a couple answers. To land at where I think this is how I approach it.
Mhm.
I have values, and I have those values because that's what guides my work, my life, my relationships. And I will, at this point, at this recording, I'm 47 years old. I will not break those for anyone. And
Understood.
why will I not? Because I believe part of my value system, I'm a person of faith, as you know, is that I believe one day I'll have to give an account to somebody. And right,
Yes.
that to me, that somebody is God. And I don't want to have to sit there and try to make up stuff to somebody who knows everything. And so it's like, listen, I'm going to avoid all that. I've been down that road, Mark. So I'm not going to sit here, right, in our urban language in front. I've never done that. No, I've, told a lie or two in my day. So, however, I have learned that you have better conscience, better well-being. This is well researched. When you stand with who you are, your values, your own integrity, right? Your mission and vision. You sleep better, you live better, anxiety is less. So I'm not going to frustrate that for anyone. What I would say and what I have learned is that not every battle is for me. And so I'm not going to try to fight every battle. I'm not going to try to, there's some hills I'm just not going to climb. And then honestly, at this point, you need to understand if you so this is good for emergent leaders, but also seasoned folks. Like when you're going to do a partnership with someone, you need to do your own research and see what they
Mhm.
believe,
Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
they believe, what's their mission and vision, and what are their values. Because if it doesn't align, then you shouldn't get into that in the first place. Now, I understand some things happen, you learn along the way. And then so you'll have to make that difficult decision of maybe this place ain't for me, or maybe you're there to try to help influence and shift them a little bit. But at the end of the day, I've learned that most times, um, people and organizations may not change for you. And so you need to just make the best decision, the best informed decision for you, for your family, and it's not easy. And it might not be a day. It may take a couple months. It may take a couple years for you to transition. But I would say for me, values based is standing by what you believe no matter what. And I know that, and as you know, today in this day and age we're living, that's getting harder and harder,
Whew.
harder and harder.
So
We
so
see.
mhm.
Mhm.
So what I hear you saying is being aligned with your core values makes for a better quality of life.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes, sir.
And and if you want that type of life, then do whatever feeds that life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I
Stay true to it. I got it. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let me ask you this. Can you describe a specific consulting engagement where you pushed an organization toward meaningful change, and what resistance you face and how you overcame it?
Hmm. So I feel like, like you said, you've done a lot of negotiations. So there's always resistance. That's why you have to
Yeah.
negotiate in the first place.
Yes, sir.
I think we negotiate every day, even in our personal relationships and marriage,
That's right.
etc. Right. I think that, at the end of the day, when you're negotiating and consulting, you have to. So first, there's different type of consultants, right? If I'm getting paid and coming in as an outsider, they're looking to me to help them, and so usually I have a little bit more influence. But if I'm in an organization, eh, um, and I'm doing internal type consulting, right? Then you have to see what's in it for them. What would be a win for them. And so I remember a particular instance. I'll give you when I was internal at an organization. Excuse me. There was a massive shift that was going to happen. I was working in a university. I'm not going to name the university, but
Mhm.
and I was hired to scale, to upgrade and grow the whole online operation of the university. And part of that, when I negotiated to take the job, part of it was that the university was in a partnership with another outside agency and the outside contractor. These folks know how to scale online operation. I'm not gonna get on into the details because it would bore you and the audience. However, this was the key thing that I learned. So the culture itself in that university did not want online education. Okay.
Okay.
They're like, we're comfortable with, we believe in traditional face-to-face education. And so there was a conflict. Clearly, leadership wanted to scale and grow online education because, right? We talk about marketing, consumer behavior. Why they want to do that? Because more people were looking to do education online, especially continuing education, returning adults. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm, mhm,
However, traditional undergraduate was a bit more face to face, but that student population was declining and the other side was increasing. So,
mhm.
in a business move was like, we need to scale, we need to grow our online. But the people they had in the organization were like, we don't want that. And so, my job as
Yeah.
an
Get
internal consultant was try to get both sides to talk and both sides to negotiate. And it took about a year. It took
Mhm.
about a year. And the middle ground was, if you get rid of the outside contractors, then us in the inside, we will cooperate and do online, but in our version. And so as a university, the leadership thought that was the best, choice. And it wasn't my number one choice, but again, I was in the middle. So it was, happy ground for both people, except for the outside agency, obviously, who were then out of a contract. But, it gave the current context a chance to grow and move in the right direction versus stay stagnant and just the university end up closing and selling or going bankrupt because there are no students.
Yeah, and I think every organization has those dinosaurs, I'll call them, that, it's like, "Look, I'm fixed, but you can't stay fixed and survive."
Yep.
So, thank you
You
for
know,
your
you know what I call those? I call them innovation antibodies.
they just not having it. Yeah.
And so, you either got to work with them or ask them to, maybe have them do something else. But
Yeah, yeah. Okay, sir. Well, let me ask you this. What concrete habits or practices do you recommend for leaders who want to foster intercultural competence in increasingly diverse teams? And I need you to tackle that because you probably see it a lot.
so I just want to make sure is a good area to talk about, but are you talking about the leader themselves or the environment's already multicultural or they're trying to go there or what? Can you tell
Well,
me a little bit more?
let's talk about it in terms of the atmosphere is that there's already a multicultural setting, and people need to learn how to, you know, work together and not be in their silos.
Right, right. Um, so this work I think is it's not easy, it's multifaceted and layered, right?
Mhm.
I think first of all, if I'm a leader of that type of team, I need to understand, what does equity and what does inclusion mean? And you can forget those words if they feel triggered. To some people, they're like, oh, I don't like the DEI term. That's fine. Think about access, right? Think about
Yeah.
belonging. Think about another human being being able to come to work and being okay in their own skin and being able to contribute to your team regardless of their race, of their religion, of their veteran status, if they're international or not, right? Immigration, all of these things that are hot topics for some people. And so if I'm the leader of that team, then first of all, I need to understand those things. And so in my own life, personally, first, I would say, am I uh exposed to other communities, or am I always, in this case, I'm Puerto Rican. Do I only hang out, spend time, right,
Mhm,
fellowship with Puerto Ricans, or am I out and about mingling with others from other
mhm,
groups? That's one. How about the things I consume? So, podcasts, articles, books, videos I watch. Is it all from my own community? Or am I hearing what other people are saying, right? And so I think that helps you to then, again, it goes from the first thing we were talking about with exposure, you
mhm,
being exposed to a broader community. Because even if you are in one, like say, one state or one city, there's always diversity
mhm,
somewhere. You need to find it. I think then, in terms of your team, who do you have on your team? Do you even know your team, right? Do you
mhm.
know if somebody is from a certain part of Asia? Well, what are they like? What is their town like? Their city? Did they grow up there? Are they second or third generation in the U.S.? Knowing those things as much as you can. You don't want to be all nosy and everything, but
Sure, sure.
getting to know people. I think having lunch and learns, going out to lunch with your team, just casually, not talking about work, getting to know people. I think business, like ministry, is a contact sport, right? You,
Mhm,
you know
mhm.
what I mean is, it takes a getting to know one another, a relationship. And so I think that leaders need to lead from a relational standpoint, not just a positional standpoint. Let me say that again. You need to
I
lead
love
from a
that.
from a relational standpoint, not just a positional standpoint. Your position may give you a certain authority, but when it comes to influence and respect, I think the relational piece is most important. And so I think for a certain time, you may have some level of respect or influence from your position. But as people get to know you, or if they feel you're hiding and you're not being yourself, that begins to diminish. And so I've always believed in leadership, leading from a relational standpoint, respecting people, even, if um so let me give you another example. Like, in a couple in places I've been younger than the people I'm leading.
Mhm,
You know how
mhm.
difficult that is? Because I
Yes,
come from a culture where you respect elders. You respect people
yes.
who are older than you. And so that dynamic is a bit strange for some, right? And so I had to learn how to you know, negotiate on a continuous basis with people who work for me, who I obviously position me. I could just tell them, hey, do this. But relationally, it would destroy the relationship. And so I would never do that. Is that making sense? What do you think about that? Relational versus positional?
I think it's an incredible answer, and I think it's a point that needs to be made because a lot of people are so stuck in position that it creates a lot of resentment and a lot of other difficulties that don't even need to be present if you would just be a real person and acknowledge the fact that we have to communicate as people. And you may be my superior, you may be somebody that's lower on the totem pole, but if you're a relational person, you understand the basics of treating people with respect regardless of their position. So I love your answer because a lot of people, where they miss it is they do not display respect. And when you get to that point, you're gonna have some problems, you know?
You're right, right. And let's add this. I can't remember. Were you in the military before?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So then you know that in the military, you tell people what to do.
Mhm.
That's it. Right? Chain of command, you follow that, you follow orders. Well, guess what? We talked about earlier contextual leadership. I can't take that same Marine Corps framework, US military framework, into uh, a ministry context. People are expecting you to be a servant leader. Like, for example, if it's a Christian religion institution like Jesus. Right? If you go into a corporate setting, you can't just, tell people like, get up and go, like that's military culture. And so I think where we make errors at times is you know, leadership inequities is like trying to translate one context into another. And that's
Hmm.
what we're talking about earlier. You need to understand the context in which you serve. You need to understand the rule book. And if there isn't a rule book, then create one where it allows everybody to flourish and your organization to thrive.
That's right. And Peter, I'll tell you this, having been in the service as an officer and having been a pastor for 24 years, I have had to flip though, you got
Right.
to know one
You
size does
code
not fit
switched.
all.
You code switched, right?
Yeah,
You you were like, oh, that's interesting. What would you say? I'm gonna now ask you a question because this is great.
sure, sure.
What would you say were your main learnings? I mean, I'm sure there are some pros and cons to both, and then there's some things that you probably say, I'm gonna take this from the military, I'm gonna take this from the ministry, but I'm probably gonna leave this or that because it doesn't no longer fit. In terms of just learning leadership overall, what would you say?
Well, I will say that the biggest learning for me from ministry is the concept of being a servant leader, and knowing that you're there to serve the people. Uh, Now, the issue that you have if you try to translate that and take that into the military is that people need to understand. Look, this is not a volunteer situation. We what we need to do is get this job done.
Right.
Now, now I'm a delegative leader. I got to give you direction, but it's going to come back to that same thing I talked to a few minutes ago: mutual respect.
Mm,
Because what happens is a lot of officers during wartime, because they didn't display respect, got fragged, and that
okay.
just means that, well,
Hmm.
they had problems,
Right.
because people are not going to be disrespected. I don't need to be fighting the enemy across enemy lines and fighting you to feel like a person, you
Right.
know. So that's where I'm with it, man. Servant leadership is beautiful, but I've got to do my job when I'm on the other side, but I've still got to operate in both of those areas with respect.
Right.
Um,
So you got to be fluid. You got to
yeah.
understand how to go in and out of culture, in and out of context, and what may work in one space may not necessarily work in another. And that's where I think some people eventually thrive and keep exceeding expectations, etc., or other people stay stagnant or very limited because they can only be effective in one specific context and one specific sector. You know, it's rare for people to be able to go into multiple contexts and lead efficiently. And I think that's where the world is going. Where you think of artificial intelligence, you think of technological advancements, you think of political polarization, you think of economics, global economics, and you think of the environment, you think of the social cultural demographic shifts, not only in the US, but globally, right? Because of migration,
Mhm.
etc. You need to understand those things. And if you don't, you're just making assumptions, bad decisions, and it'll catch up to you.
Well, let me throw another layer of to you. I'm also a landlord, um,
Man.
and people that find that out, that are tenants, try to live for free because you are Christian.
Mm,
But I'm also a businessman and I'm also a proper steward.
hmm.
And so you can't get in your feelings because people try to abuse your position.
Right, right,
You still have to do what is necessary. Because if I let you live free, then I'm doing something to impact my family's lifestyle, that I've put us in this position for a reason. So if you can't pay your rent, I'm going to follow the law of the land and you will be evicted,
right,
period.
right,
And I'm still a pastor. You
right.
know
And
what
I'm
I
sure,
mean?
yeah. All right. And I'm sure that you will follow the correct procedures, the law,
Absolutely.
do it
Absolutely.
ethically. And I think that that is more than okay. Some people may be the opposite. Here in New York, there's a new mayor, and I heard that there's this company who owns, man, thousands of apartments. And for like 20, 30 years, this company has, that term slumlord, where
Mhm.
they've had the apartments below living conditions, and they've
Sure.
been able to, because of their monetary, their income flow, and lawyers, they've always been able to abuse their the people who stay, their tenants. That's not what you're saying, obviously, but I'm throwing that in there, like, there
No,
are
I'm
people
hearing you.
who are
Mhm.
like that, and so
Yeah.
it's something that again, it goes back to, what are your values? If you if you
That's right, sir. Mhm.
if you're gonna be a owner of anything, what do you value? You don't value human life.
Yeah, and
So
that's why I threw in there that be a proper steward,
yeah,
because when your stewardship, is there and you're a person of honor, people are going to try to abuse you no matter what. They're gonna try to get over. That's just people that try to get over are out here. They're gonna be out here, but you can't, you know, don't be a sucker.
yeah, yeah,
So
exactly.
yes, sir. So let me ask you this, Peter. As a best-selling author and a classroom professor, how do you balance theory and practice when teaching future leaders, and which do you prioritize when they conflict?
Um, so as you know, I'm a professor at the moment at New York University, NYU, and this past semester I had a class called Business Management and Organization, and most of the students were traditional undergraduate age, so that's like 19, 20. There were a few returning adults, 30, 35. I had a local entrepreneur from Brooklyn who owns several businesses, right? So the class is mixed.
Mhm.
And for me, I think that theory and practice go hand in hand, right? One informs the
Okay.
other,
Okay.
so for me, it's never like a conflict. It's more, again, contextual. In this situation, which one gets maybe more than the other, or
Mhm.
which one can be applied more or less. And so I think that you need to understand theory. You need to understand where things come from. Why does, this belief exist? And then how is it lived out, right? How is a specific theory, a specific policy, a specific law, that first was probably presented as a theory, and then it became something that we practice, right? And so,
Mhm.
like the stop sign, right? People were like, okay, we can't just have vehicles crossing intersections because people will crash. So we need to put stop sign on this side so that people can stop. And that's the theory. I think if we put stop signs, people will stop, and it will prevent accidents.
Mhm.
Everybody seemed like, oh, that was good. Let's put it into practice. Let's put it into law. And then you put the stop signs, and then you see, okay, we may need stop signs on all four corners, not just two. I'm just thinking this off the head, but so
No,
that,
I'm with you.
yeah, so that goes. I think that plays out in every sector, in every industry, where theory, the creation of something, then becomes practice. And I think you need to understand both.
Got you. Got you. Now, in terms of, I want to know how you define personal transformation for a leader. And what are the early warning signs that someone needs a transformational rather than an incremental shift in what they're doing?
So that's interesting that you phrase it like that. I think that any transformation is going to be incremental. I
Okay.
also think like innovation is
Mhm.
rare that something just it's invented and, oh, usually it's incremental. It's, you're piloting an idea. You think of the light bulb. It's said that it was, they tried like more than 10,000 times or something to right to
Mhm.
create
Mhm.
this. I think also people don't change from night to day. So let me
Mhm.
put it like this. There's a different type of light switches, right?
Mhm.
Some are a light switch, a flicker on and off, right? And then you have that light dimmer,
Yes,
right?
sir. Mhm.
So I think in leadership, most people, especially in the US context, want the light flicker. Transformation, boom,
We
on,
need a
I'm
we
done,
need a
I'm
quick
good.
fix, man. We gotta have a quick
Yeah.
fix.
Right. And usually most times, even if it worked, it may work just for a short time. And then so I think you need a light dimmer type of transformational approach where incrementally you're pivoting, you're letting go of some things, right? So, think of learning, unlearning, relearning. So what are those things in your area, in your life that you may need to let go? And you know it. Most times we know it. We just don't want to change because we're so used to our comfortable, right? And comfort kills growth. Comfort always kills, nothing grows in the comfort zone. That's so those are the few markers I think. If you're really comfortable, but you know that you have potential to be and become more, then why not? Right? Why not
Mhm.
become more? Take those steps. And if they're might call them micro wins, little wins, right? That you can begin to build on. What I'm doing today, I've been doing it for like 20 years. People are like, oh, I want to do what you do. Yeah, you just want to be on the stage, but you don't want to be alone. You don't want to be weeks away from family writing. You don't want to, at times, not be able to go to somebody's party or somebody's gathering because you got a deadline. You don't want those things. You just want to be in the limelight and a stage. You know, so
Yeah.
you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I mean, so
Yeah.
we need to be, I think, real with people that transformation, I believe. I don't know, maybe your question comes from a different experience. I would love to hear that. Like, do you think or believe that transformation can be uh instantaneously, or is it a process?
No, I'm feeling what you're saying, and where I was coming from, where I'm coming from is that a lot of times when I end up in situations where somebody clearly needs to make a change, but they're stuck where they are, I think what I'm getting at is you can make a decision
Mm,
in an instant. You might not be able to carry out the process in an instant, and a lot of people have problems getting to the decision. I give you an example, man. I got a couple years behind on my taxes because I used to do my taxes all the time myself, but I had a death that got me in the family that got me caught up, and I couldn't get my head in it. If I could have just gotten my head into it and made a decision, it would have taken me less than an hour to actually do the work,
mm,
but I could not get myself positioned to do the work. And so my paradigm when I kind of phrase that question is, a lot of people, it's like I'm not that bad, and I can
mm,
do this and I can do that, but sometimes yeah, you are that bad, and you made to make a decision that you're going to transform out of this situation. So that's
right.
kind of where I was coming from. But I love your answer.
Mm. I
Your
agree
answer.
with you. I agree with you. It's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
It's like the prodigal son, right?
Yes,
The
sir.
sacred text tells us about this young guy who was one of two sons. For those who may be listening to us who don't read the Bible, the sacred text, and he said he wanted his inheritance early. He left, and then he blew it all.
Uh-huh.
And then the text tells us that he's now tending to pigs. He takes care of pigs for a living, and he's in there wallowing with them. And he's like, "What the heck did I get myself into?" And the scripture says he came to himself. In other words,
He came to
his mind.
himself.
He said, "What am I doing here? I don't belong here with the pigs." He said,
That's
"Man,
right.
even if I go back to my father's house where I left, where I did totally wrong, I did my family wrong, even if I were to become one of his servants, even if I can't be a son again, I'm still better off than being here with these pigs."
In the
He said
pigsty.
he got up, and then, so I'm putting both of our ideas together. That
Yes.
mindset, he said, no, no, no. And then what I'm saying about process, he said he got up and he went to his father's house, and he went through the process of being reinstated. He's like, the heck with that. So I
That's
think
right.
that if you find yourself today in a situation, in a relationship, right? Those who are listening to us, in a job, in a place where you feel like this ain't it, okay, admit it, and then make a plan. Maybe you need a coach, call Coach Mark, and help you to make the plan to get out of that, because there's nothing worse than living beneath your potential, and nothing worse than really living out what God has put in you to live. So,
Agreed, sir. Agreed. Now you mentioned that do you have one book or several books?
uh, two books, and I just this pat in the Christmas we published. a journal.
Okay.
It's called Maximize Your Faith. So my first book was more academic. It's called Untold Stories, the
Okay.
Latinx leadership experience in higher education. It
Mhm.
talks
Mhm.
about the experiences of people of color and religious affiliated institutions of higher ed in the US. And then Maximize, which was published in English and Spanish, Maximiza en Español. And then recently the Maximize Your Faith. And we're really going hard at the Maximize because it's a concept we believe everybody can gravitate to and adopt, where it's just, I'm not competing with you, Dr. Mark. I'm not competing with, some other professor or speaker or business entrepreneur. I'm competing with myself. How can I
Mhm.
become my best with the gifts and talents that I have been given, with the resources I have, and how can I maximize that, right, to make my mark here on earth? And so that's really what the maximize concept is about.
I love it.
Yeah, it goes back to the sacred text, man. The parable of the talents. We one day we'll give an account, and so I just want to maximize what I got.
So you playing golf, man. You playing against yourself. I
That's right.
I love it. Let me ask you this, Dr. Peter. How do you counsel leaders to make ethically difficult decisions when there's no clear right or wrong, no clear right answer, especially under pressure?
So that's a good that especially under pressure is a good. It makes me take pulse because
Yeah, I had to give
if
that to you. I knew it
mm,
would. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one. If you have any decision as a leader is difficult, but if you're under pressure, I would say pulse, try to step out the situation, and I would always encourage to get outside advisors. I have, two or three confidants. I have two accountability partners myself. Those are the type of people I would take an extremely important decision to, if I have a conflict, if I'm just not clear, just to get an outside perspective. Because sometimes, again, we're in our immediate context and we can't see outside of it, right? And
Mhm.
somebody who's not there, who's not feeling the pressure, who's not under that, um, that the pressures, right? They may be more clear headed. Now, I would say if you don't have the time, you have to make a decision right there, at the moment. I go back to the values that we talked about in the beginning. What aligns with this or not? Does it align with my life mission and vision or not? I have written a 2-page document of my life mission and vision.
I
And then my
love it.
wife and I, we created our own and then we put them together and
Mhm.
to see, as a family, you and me, how do we live this out? So how does she support me? How do I can support her? And how together, again, we can maximize. But that is the constitution, if you will, right, of my life and of our marriage. And I believe that's the same for leadership. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna cheat, I'm not gonna steal, right? Those are just basic things for me and
Mhm.
my value system. And if where I'm at today or in the future that would require that, I wouldn't be able to participate.
That is phenomenal, sir, and I know that um, you just took me somewhere I needed to go too,
Mm,
because my wife and I have our individual things, but we've never taken that step of merging them, even though we know,
right.
where each other are going. Merging them is a step that puts you in a different into the stratosphere. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Um,
So think about it like, let me just add something because you added another piece that I wasn't even thinking of. Like, when I have to make a decision, I no longer think about myself. I think about also my spouse and her life
yeah.
mission and vision. Something may be awesome for me. Something may be amazing, an opportunity or something, but I know that it will conflict. That if I know that it will conflict severely with my wife Ruby and her mission and vision, and then ultimately it's going to bring a major conflict to us as a couple, then I'm just going to have to, say thank you, that sounds great, but I actually know somebody else who may be a better fit, etc. It's the same in teams, right? It goes back to what we talked about earlier. If you know your teammates well, if you know the
Yes.
people who you're working with well, then you know what type of new product or service or business contract makes sense for you and your team and what doesn't, right? Too many times we have leaders going into different contracts, different negotiations, because they believe it's a great opportunity. And it is. But guess what? At that time, at that season, in that particular place and space, it might not be the best for your team. And so I think a more strategic choice, and goes back to finalize about your question about how you make decisions. Okay, it might be good for me, but is it good for the team? And I think that's where a more mature, seasoned leadership begins to evolve.
Yes. Yes. Let me ask you this, Dr. Peter. What role does mentorship play in your leadership model, and how should leaders design mentorship systems that scale across cultures?
Great. I think that so you just nailed it on the head. You need a mentorship type system. You can change the word mentorship if you don't like that word, a coaching system, partnership system, whatever. And by the way, can I throw a shameless plug in here? Is that all right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, a few days ago we launched the Maximize Your Life free online course on YouTube. 12 keys, right, to unlocking
Yes.
your greatest potential. So anybody who's listening to us, please go to our YouTube channel, Dr. Peter Rios, and you'll find it there. One of those keys, Dr. Mark, is mentorship. Like
Awesome.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for mentorship. If it wasn't.
So it's at Dr. Peter Rayos. That's your YouTube station?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Dr.
Okay.
Dr. with no dot Peter Rios. Or if they just put Dr. Peter on YouTube, they'll find it. And it's maximize. And so, you know, seeing seeing people who were at a place in life that I wanted to be, where I was aspiring to go, and aligning myself with them. This is the key though. So a lot of people say, yeah, I got a mentor, but it's not working. Are you actually applying and doing what the mentor is asking you and suggesting for you to do?
Yeah.
I met somebody, they read that chapter in my book and they're like, yeah, it's different for you because you had several people who were mentoring you. And I was like, it doesn't mean it's been easy. I had to
How about that?
apply what they were telling me. I had to obey, right? Certain things, principles that at the time, being 18 years old or 25 years old or 35 years old, I, I didn't think or it was the right thing. But ultimately, and I made mistakes, obviously, but having those people to guide you is key. I think that in an organizational life, right, and work, there has to be some level of coaching, some level of hand holding, some level of this is how we do it here. You're helping people to learn the lay of the land, the cultural and values that you have in that organization, and setting people up for success, right? Too many
Mhm.
times we have people go into a new job or workplace situation and they're just like, go figure it out. That's not
Yeah.
going to help them or you. And guess what? Turnover, as we know, research tells us this, the more turnover you have, the more expensive it is for your organization, and less profitable you'll be. So I would say you need a mentorship system.
Absolutely. I'm intrigued. Tell me a little bit more about the 12-part system that you have on YouTube, and tell me, um, if I engage in that system, what's the goal? How will I be better once I finish the 12 steps?
So as you said, it's a system. And because a lot of people, they are motivated, but motivation takes you to a certain, right, to a certain place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you go through the keys, I'm walking you through, and these are high level, high quality interactive lectures, where also on YouTube the links go to my website where you can download a master action plan. So in
Oh,
every
that's awesome.
lesson, there,
Yeah.
like we talked about theory and practice, I believe in both. So I bring a little bit of the theoretical, why these concepts exist, how they've applied in my life and in other people's lives, and then how can you apply them in that week. So for example, I think it's key number 7, intentional service. We talked about this, but you know serving your community, serving others, becoming that person who finds themselves through serve. I think it was Muhammad Gandhi who said that, find yourself through serving others. That's
Mhm. Mhm.
powerful because you begin to live selfless life. There's nothing more rewarding than that. I'm telling you, no money, no nothing is more rewarding than that. That's just an example. And so like the master action plan would take you to, what organization can you donate some time in this week? What if you are older, or you are competent in a certain area, who can you mentor? And so you're giving back, right? But guess what? That's always reciprocal. We don't do it because of that, but it's always reciprocal. There's
Mhm.
other keys, right? Like innovation and creativity, right? How to find that childlike sense that you had when you were little, right? Little kids always ask, well, why? You tell them do something, why? Or little kids at times. So let me give you an example. This may spook some people up, but when my grandmother raised me, right? I think I told you that. And
Mhm.
so she had her, we were little, and we would play with some of her things. And um, once in a while, my cousins and I, we would put on some of her clothes, her high heels. Not that, we were, trying to be someone else. It's just that was there. But guess what? I remember one time using one of her high heels as a hammer. She wasn't, she wasn't happy about that, right? But I was using it as a hammer because I thought it could help me to I was trying to fix something. That's childlike creativity. How can you repurpose things? Sometimes we're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is trash. This is no good. I'm gonna throw it out. Don't throw it out. How can you repurpose it? That's where innovation and creativity stems from. And so sometimes I don't know if you've heard this word, we get we're adulting, right? You're adulting. There's no more childlike. There's no more fun. You're just serious. You're just a
I
square
get it.
pants.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you sucking a bunch of lemon. Like, then listen, we need to get rid of that, and we need to return to some of these childlike ways of, having fun. And so, do you need to go to Legoland, right, in Orlando for a day or two, or Disney? Do you need to, take a group of your friends and go have fun, at a dinner? Things that will inspire you to then uh, create and innovate within your own life, your relationships, your business. So these are things that we go through,
Mhm. Now let me ask you, Dr. Peter, 'cause I should have asked you this earlier. Do you have a hard stop at noon?
I do.
Okay, well, let me just go to the last question then, okay?
Yeah.
What do you hope your leadership legacy will be, and how do you intentionally shape that legacy through daily leadership choices?
Right. So people who have inspired me in leadership, I think of Martin Luther King Jr., right, who stood up for the equality of everyone. I think of, the words of Jesus saying, whatever you've done for the least of these, you've done it for me. Think of people like Mother Teresa. I think of other religious leaders. I think of other business leaders and organizational leaders who probably had to bite a bullet or two because their values drove them to do that, and they may
Mhm.
have been fired or let go. Those are the type of people that inspire me. And I I want to I'm not saying I want to be a martyr or anything, but I want to live a life, a type of leadership where it at my funeral, like I think about it like that at the end. What are people going to say about me? What are they going to say about you? Those of you who are listening, what are they going to say about you? Think about it like that. And I want people to say, this guy wasn't perfect, but man, he helped me to see what I could be. I was stuck, like you said, Mark. I was stuck. I, 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 I knew I needed to change. I just didn't know how. And, and that's why, we do things like this free YouTube course, right?
Mhm.
That's why we do things, we give, we pour into people, and we don't expect anything in return because I've been given a lot, right? And I want to make that, I want to give in return. I think that those are a few things, and just that, I cared about humanity. At this day and age that we're living in, January of 2026, it seems like, especially in our context of the US, people care about human life less and less.
Wow.
And I
Yes.
don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. I don't care if you from the left or right. Doesn't matter. This is about being right or wrong. So what do we value, right? He was a person of value. He was a brother. He wasn't perfect, but he valued me. And guess what? How do you know if you value somebody? When you're able to serve somebody and empower them, and you know that you're not going to get anything in return. You know it, right? Some people will
Okay.
blow people off because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Listen, my
learned don't
friend.
do that.
I want to thank you so much for your time. As we part, just tell me what you enjoyed most about this experience.
Man, enjoy spending time with you. And you've made me think about certain things that I haven't either thought of in a while or I had not thought of at all. So I appreciate that. I think you asked great questions. You're doing a great job with this podcast. I've seen a few of your guests. It's very diverse in terms of subject matter expertise, in terms of where people come from. So keep up the great work, man. You yourself are making a great difference, and I applaud you for that.
Hey man, it takes one to know one. I appreciate you, sir. Listen, family, we're gonna get out of here. We thank you for being with us today. Dr. Peter Rios at peterriosconsulting.com. Listen, I never told you, I should have, that we talked about leading with clarity, courage, and vision. That's what this man is about. So you look him up. And Dr. Peter, we're going to sign off, but don't go just yet. I need another 30 seconds.
Good to be here with you all.